Okay, let's move on to Donald Trump. This has been very interesting to watch. So you might not recall this, but Governor DeSantis was recently interviewed and asked whether he got the booster shot, and he kind of demurred and did not confirm whether the answer was yes or no. Now, next, Donald Trump was then interviewed by OAN, and it's the same situation as during the Candace Owens interview, where the interviewer clearly wants him to say, like, I regret the vaccine, like, trash the vaccine, you know, all of that. And Trump comes out forcefully, not only in effect for the vaccine, but calls out DeSantis in all but name. Let's take a listen.
Do you reconsider your push for it, or what's your view now on the vaccine in general?
Well, I've taken it. I've had the booster. Many politicians, I watched a couple of politicians be interviewed, and one of the questions was, did you get the booster? Because they had the vaccine. And they're answering it like, in other words, the answer is yes, but they don't want to say it. Because they're gutless. You got to say it. Whether you had it or not, say it. Right. But the fact is that I think the vaccine has saved tens of millions of people throughout the world. Okay. I have had absolutely no side effects. I've had it like other people have had it, nothing special. I've had it.
Wow. I mean,
interesting.
Yeah, I think it's once again an area where I always try to ponder counterfactuals, which is that, yes, you know, it may seem more calm with Trump off Twitter, but what did we lose? And this again shows you the, many cascading and 20th order effects of censorship. Yeah, you lost, he was banned or whatever on January 6th, but there's a world where this entire right-wing response looks completely different if Trump was on Twitter. A huge amount of what we see in terms of vaccine activity and more on the right is in the absence of Trump as a singular figure. And I see this very clearly. I also think now that him getting booted off Twitter is probably the best thing that ever happened for him. He receded from public memory. Whenever he does pop up and enter the public consciousness, it is in moments like this one. In general, people blame the country's problems on Joe Biden, rightfully. They don't even consider Trump. They're like, it's kind of like a yesteryear phenomenon, and the intensity of the way that you feel starts to fade. And I see clips like that, and I just think about Trump, by not being such a big force in the vaccine discourse on the right, and I'm talking over a year ago now, there's very likely a way in which he negates and nukes all of this and ridicules people on the right for not doing so like this. So very interesting in order to see that. But honestly, at this point, I think it might be too late. I mean, I think so much of it has a life of its own.
Cake is really big.
It really is. Like, you look at Candace saying she would rather die of COVID than take the COVID vaccine, or a lot of these other people, in the absence of Trump, kind of decided to go in this way. And now Trump coming out and calling them out isn't necessarily going to do anything.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this in terms of the sort of political calculus. I mean, this is something we've talked about on this show, is that you've got, like, what is it, 85%
of U.S. adults.
Of the adult population that's had at least one shot. That means even within the Republican Party, Trump's position is the majority position.
I know, especially amongst boomers. 95% of boomers are vaccinated. Yes. 95% of them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So he actually is on firm political ground. Not with maybe the most ardent supporters, but with the majority of the Republican base, he's on solid footing here, which is also, I mean, that's just interesting to note and very different than the picture that I think is often painted, because you do have more vaccine hesitancy, sort of ideological vaccine hesitancy on that side of the aisle. I did want to say what DeSantis said, because I found the quote when he was asked by Maria Bartiromo, this was back in December, if she said, you got to say it. Trump said, you got to say it, whether you had it or not. Bartiromo back in December had asked DeSantis, and he said, quote, done whatever I did, the normal shot. So he would not say. And like that doesn't even, it's not even like really English.
It's fine, yeah.
The other thing I wanted to note here is that Governor Jim Justice of West Virginia has COVID right now, and is vaxxed, is boosted, and is apparently very ill. He described himself as extremely unwell, had to postpone his State of the State speech. So just wanted to say, we're thinking of him and his family, because he's an older guy, he's a heavier guy, big dude. He's either 6'7" or 6'8", And I've met him in person. He is a sort of larger than life figure, and he has, a number of comorbidities that would put him at more risk with coronavirus. So you can see there are still people who, even when they're vaxxed and boosted, continue to be at risk because of their, sort of personal health status.
I hear it all the time. People who just got the booster shot, now they have COVID or whatever. I just, it's another thing. Yes, it protects you from a hospitalization and death. But look, be very, very, clear that taking care of yourself is one of the best ways in order to avoid having a bad time, not just with COVID, but with all disease, something I've really learned from this. I do want to highlight something which has been fascinating to me, is that Trump's shot at DeSantis spawned a lot of conversation on the online right, who were trashing Trump for going after DeSantis.
Oh, really?
So Ann Coulter actually said this, quote, exclusive, Trump is demanding to know Ron DeSantis' booster status, and I can now reveal it. He was a loyal booster when Trump ran in 2016. Then he learned our president was a liar and a con man whose grift was permanent. I hope that clears things up.
Of course, Coulter has hated Trump for a while.
She has, but then I also saw a guy, Matt Walsh, he works over at the Daily Wire, kind of an interesting, more libertarian figure. And he, again, was doing the same thing. He's like, hey, he's a classic Trump, trashing the one national figure who actually would have a chance in his absence. So there has now been, kind of an internecine war online as to people turning against Trump for going after DeSantis because they see DeSantis as a much more competent, true figure, on the national political stage. I just thought it was a fascinating thing, too. I think in a way that this could also be driven by Trump's insecurity as seeing DeSantis kind of rise up and take a lot of national media attention. I mean, at his core, that's all he cares about is attention on him, on himself, and, very, very, very jealously guards his role as the #1 person within the Republican Party and his hold on the base. So there's another element to it, too. I'm just saying, I found it all interesting.
I mean, the Republican Party is very much Trump's party. If he runs, he'll be the nominee. But he is super petty. And so the fact that DeSantis even has a little bit of a toehold, even though he's not a real threat to Trump
like
whatsoever,
yes.
I'm sure that that's definitely part of his calculus here. I do think your counterfactual is interesting to contemplate, too.
Yeah.
The fact that we don't have Trump in our face on Twitter every day reminding us how annoying and obnoxious and awful he is routinely, that probably has helped him.
Oh, massively.
That probably has put him in better position because memories have faded and people have forgotten how horrible and selfish and narcissistic.
Well, there's just none of the. There's none of the Stormy Daniels is a horse face. There's none of all that other stuff which was intrinsic to Trump. Now, whenever he comes out, it's in a more filtered format. Most of his statements don't get any play whatsoever. It's only in these kind of breakout moments in which the media covers him. And with all of the national attention on Biden, then there's nothing to really compare it to. So it's a very fascinating thing to me that it could be the best thing that ever happened to Trump politically. Allowing him to not remind people constantly of the most odious and annoying parts of his personality and letting people only remember the good times of 2019 or whatever. People's consciousness and their memory changes very, very quickly. 1 year is an eternity in American politics. So you put that all together and you see this. I see a jockeying for being the top of the Republican Party. Look, with a good message, undeniably, of it. And it makes me really think. I'm like, what would the world look like with Donald Trump on Twitter today? Maybe it would be a better one in some ways and worse in others. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really have no idea.
We'll never know. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut. Our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions. All that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.